It's a very, 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 very happy day. Hey guys, it's Ellen here, and it's Mini Monday Madness, and so we're doing some minis today, and we're doing ink and wash again with some fruit this time. Strawberries and blueberries. I go everything step by step, even how to draw it. But if you're on Patreon, you can download the traceable that goes with this. If you're not on Patreon, you can check it out. It's a place I have traceables, ad-free videos, exclusive content on Thursdays, and coming soon, actually this week, it's going to be my first one, live streaming on the top tier. Once a month I'll be doing a live streaming, painting, talking, answering questions, all that good stuff. So, again, if you have any questions in the comment section, please don't forget to hit the bell notification button to know my tutorials are up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. So without further ado, let's get creating. Alright guys, as always, I'll go over my supplies. I have 2 3-inch square 100% cotton cold pressed paper from Arsh. I just placed it on this cardboard so you can see it better. My palette, my paints, I go over them as I use them, and they're always in the description box. I'll be using my Princeton 8 long round. I'll be using the fountain pen today. You don't have to use a fountain pen. You can use an actual pen that has a kind of like tip like this. Or you can use a Sharpie or a Micron pen, just like that. If you're a Patreon member, of course, you can download the traceable. If you're not a Patreon member, well, I'll talk about drawing the strawberries and the blueberries. But this is just a simple, again, fun ink and wash watercolor. We did the vegetable one. I figured let's do a fruit one. And it's summertime and everyone's eating fruit. So, yeah, so, basically, for a strawberry shape, or how a strawberry looks, you basically kind of picture yourself curving a line down this way and then taking that line, you see I'm holding that line and bringing it back to home, right? There's your strawberry. And then you're going to add the cap to it. So just a little line here, curving in, bringing it down, curving in. If you're having difficulty drawing that, just think about triangles, like that. And then you have a line where the stem it's going to be attached to. You can put another one out here. Again, you think about triangles here. And a smaller one. And another one. Bend that line here. Smaller one. And then the leaves are just simple leaves. So they kind of have a jagged edge to them. So if you want to just start off drawing it like this and then going in and adding a jagged edge, that kind of helps you control it better, and then put the veins in. Same thing here. And then we just do some other ones out here. For the blueberries, well, I just have a line down here. Picture that the curved line where they're connected to. And they're just circles, but then within the circle, there's like another circle and little triangles on top of that. So let me draw a big version of that. You can do this small though. So you got a big circle, another circle, and then you got this little, like a crown cap, and here's the version of a blueberry on its side. Like a little crown, right? So you're just doing a cluster of these circles. And then you can draw the little circle with the crown, and then one with just a little half crown. And then the leaves are pretty straightforward. Just like this. And that's how you do the blueberry. So I've got them both here. They're already in. I've already got transferred the traceable on them. I'm going to just delete some of the marks of the graphite. And this is just a really quick, so this time for the pen and ink wash, I'm going to do the watercolor first and then go back over with the ink. With this particular ink, it will bleed, if you do the other way. So you got to paint the actual painting first. So I'm going to do the strip. Actually, I'm going to switch to a Grumbacher here. Grumbacher number 10. And I didn't mention that I have, which I'm getting right now, paper towels close by. It's Monday, the brain cells aren't working well on Monday. You could use the Princeton, so we can switch back to the Princeton if that works better for you. And I have my quinachradone magenta, very pinky kind of color. Mixing a good amount of water with this. And then I'm going to clean up that, and I'm going to grab some of my cadmium yellow deep. I like to mix my reds. Make like a nice pretty red. Looks a little brighter, right? You get a little more pink if you want. like that strawberry color. Alright, so that's pretty watery, as you can see. Tapping my paper towel, and I'll kind of zoom in on this one a little bit. So really loosely just painting in the strawberry around the sketch that I have. I have like 3 strawberries in here. You could have painted the green part too first if you wanted to, just to get an indication, but I'm just going to do the strawberry part first. Just go right in there and loosely paint that. Now of course you'll have to wait till that dries before you start to go in and play around with adding your green, because it will start to bleed in next to it. But you could start to paint the leaves before you go into the stems. The strawberry leaves are pretty dark green, so I'm going to grab my peacock blue. It's all kind of muddy right here. Makes it pretty green, and I'm going to add some Prussian blue to that too. And we've got the yellow. We've got a nice pretty green, right? I'll take that same green, put them over here, and grab Prussian blue, and you get a deeper green. And I'll add a little burnt umber to it too. So you have the 2 greens. It's always nice to have both. So you could take this bright green and you could just fill in the leaves here. Little jagged edges. I'm just really loosely painting this with my Princeton 8 long round. If it's too much water, I just go back in the paper towel and I tap it. You see what I just did there? Kind of a little jagged edge. They're kind of like a wide leaf. Just going to fix this a little more. I could take the dark green and just kind of bleed in. So it has this multifaceted kind of tonal look to it. Not just this flat dark green, right? Again, see, this is still wet. I can see it. I'm going to avoid going near that. Going to go in here. Another trick to do is you can just paint the leaf like this, right? See that in the circle? Fill it in. Because we have a pointy tip on this brush. Take it and just kind of like push out paint after you paint the circle like that. Instead of painting these really fine details of the jagged edge. You get the idea that it's jagged without having to do all that technical work. Or you can do the technical work. And I'm going to go back in here again and bleed in some darker color. So you can do the technical work and go back and forth. You might want to use a small brush, I don't know, but I want it really loose anyway, so this color is pretty dark right here. I'm not really fuss with it. And I'm going to go and touch the stem here. That dark green, maybe add a little burnt umber to it. And I got the stem here. Again, this strawberry part is still damp, and the leaf behind it, you just touch it, still wet. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to come back. By the way, you can paint in the veins, but another trick, while it's still damp, it's going to fold into it. You can take a credit card. See, it's still very damp, so I'm not going to have to wait till it dries, but it's not as damp. You can just kind of score and then make the lines, and you can do that. But you can wait till it dries and paint in the veins. But see how this kind of like already filled in? So you're scraping the paper and it's filled in the little area. If you have another tool, I have a, I'll find my X-Acto blade. I'll find my exact, well, I can even use another tool, but like a real sharp tool, X-Acto blade, can do the same thing. Now see, this is still very damp, so I don't know if it's going to do this. It did. It's something kind of sharp. Alright, I have my dirty X-Acto blade. I had like paint all over it, but if you have one of these, it's pointier and you can get more control. So you could go in and scrape, put the veins in, and the paint goes right into it. I didn't even have to paint it. You see that? Just a little technique. All right, so then we can go behind the strawberries a little dry, a little wet still, but it's not going to be bothersome. I'm going to put in this leaf behind it. Maybe not put so much water so it becomes like this bleedy mess. Again, fill that in. And maybe bleed in some darker tones. Just on the edges. And back here. And we'll let that dry a bit, and we can do the same scraping motion. Meanwhile, back at the farm, let's put the little caps on the strawberries. Just kind of like little triangles. Yeah. This is still wet. We're going to have to come back to that. While we have the green on our hands, we're going to switch over to our blueberry. Just like that. It's like magic. And we can just fill in the leaves here. And then these leaves are just a different shape. There's no jagged edge. They're smooth. Typical leaf you would see. I'm just going to fill this in with that same color. The bright green. Careful not to hit too much. And let me tell you, if you make a mistake, that's fine, because we're going to just go back in with the pen and ink and have fun with this. Just filling in. This is more of a break. I'm going to grab some more yellow and some peacock. Bright green. The strawberry leaves are a deeper green. The blueberry leaves are more brighter. And for the blueberry itself, we're going to mix up some paint. I'm going to be using probably ultramarine and the Prussian blue. So I'm not really fussing too much with this. The stem could be brown, some green. I've got some burnt umber. Put some stems in here, connecting, whatnot. For the blueberry itself, I'm going to grab some, let's grab some ultramarine blue. It's a pretty color. All right, got some water in there. It's a nice blue blueberry. You want to add a little Prussian blue. Looks more blueberry color. See? Now that's very wet. I am going to tap it on my paper towel. I'm going to fill in the whole blueberry. Even you can see the little crown part. This is where we don't get too crazy. I'm even filling in all that. I know we drew in the little crown top, but don't get too bogged down by painting that. We're just going to fill this in. Like so. It's still very damp. We're going to add some darker tones to it, don't worry. Now this one was on its side, so I can do the little crown part that we drew. See? Just fill the blueberry in. Start off with the pale color. With watercolor, you go light to dark, because once you go dark, you can't go light over it, unlike gouache or acrylic. That's not how it works. So now I'm going to grab some more of the ultramarine and the Prussian blue. See, a little bit darker. Still. While it's still damp, you can kind of just hit the edges, have it bleed in. If it's not, you might have to get a little water here. Add a little more water. Oh, some of these guys dried fast. So if they do dry, you clean up your brush, kind of manipulate it. Grab some white water and just go back in here, go over it. Didn't want to cooperate, dried too fast, huh? Again, you're just filling in the circles. Grab a little more of this paint. And put that little crown part in. All right, so it's getting a little bit darker. And it should be wetter again. This time it dried too fast before. Now we can grab some more of that paint and bleed in like on the side here. Over here. By that I mean you're just tapping in the darker tones and just hitting the edges of it. If you want to grab some Prussian blue, minimal ultramarine, hit the edges back here and here. Don't have to fuss with it too much. Because remember, we're going to do that ink. It's just an exercise in wet on wet at this point. Getting a little fuzzy on the edges. But again, don't worry. I'm going to go back in with that ink and play around with color. Now, if you wanted it a little bit lighter, you can do this technique where you clean up your brush, tap it on a paper towel, and just pick up some of that paint and tap it back on the paper towel. See that? Gets a little whiter, so it's a little more round looking. Just another technique you can use. And voila. On this one, we're going to use the ink for the veins. And we could have done the ink for the veins for these ones too. I'm switching back to the strawberry. So we're just going to fill in that cap that we missed. La la la. Make it a little brighter than the leaf behind it. And you can get a little darker with the leaf behind you. Play around. If you want to paint the vein, you can do that. We're going to do the ink though also. All right. So I'm going to let both of these dry. Like I said, if the blueberry seems a little fuzzy on the edges, you can go back in. Just tweak it if you want it like stiff. But we're going to be going in with the ink. Fixing that little crown part. Putting paint on the edge where the crown part would be. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry and then we're going to work on the ink part. Oh yes, I did want to mention before we let it dry for the ink, we can do some splattering like we did with the vegetables. So we get some of that blue paint pretty loose. Not too much though. I'm getting it over here. See that blueberry paint? Really watery. Now, the closer you go to the page, the tighter we'll get. I'll move the strawberry out of the way so it doesn't get on the strawberry. And I'm just getting really tight close here. Just the blueberry part. And then if you want to do the green part, mix up some of your greens. Okay. Mine got a little crazy, but you get the drift. Just lift the paper towel up in the area that I don't like. It's a little splattering, which is kind of fun. Do it over here. And the greens are on the strawberry. And then I'll clean that off. And I'll do the strawberry part. Red. And then we have some fun splattering on those. So then, of course, we have to let that dry before we do the ink. All right, now it's all dry. We're gonna get out our ink fountain and our fountain pen. This is where you take your time because you can make a big splotch and a mess. Just put a little on here. If you don't have this, like I said, use a Sharpie pen or a micron pen. And you could have done that first and then drawn the... So you're going to just go in here, kind of wiggle the lines. I might go outside the line. Let me show you, zoom in. Doesn't want to zoom, does it? Okay. So you see how I didn't hit the inside of that? That's the kind of look I'm going for. It's kind of sketchy look. And then you can put the veins in this way, like I said before. And again, the blueberry with the little circular thing and the crown I showed you. This one had the side one. It's very satisfying. I guess you could picture yourself living in the 1700s writing letters with this kind of stuff, right? And if you got the ink all over the place, you'd kind of lose it. So see how I just drew in a little crown. Again, it takes time to do this, you know, don't rush it, because when you rush it, that's going to splatter. I just love the effect that it gives. So it's not like this perfect line, it's thick, it's thin. Has a really artistic sketch quality to it. Again, in the leaf. I like to go outside the leaf. See, like I did here. All this fun stuff. And you can play around with thick and thin lines. Pushing down more, not pushing down as much. You get the thickness that you're looking for. See, I created the veins on this one with the pen. Thick and thin lines. This one didn't connect much, so you have to connect those. And there you go. It's just very similar to the vegetables. This time we're doing fruit. Has that really cool artistic look. And then we just do the same thing with the strawberries. One thing I didn't mention was we didn't do for the strawberries the little white center parts. I mean the center parts, seeds. I'm losing my mind. So I would suggest grab some white gouache. I have some white gouache here, just really cheap white gouache. And before we do the little pen and ink, we should do the little seeds. If you did some masking fluid in the beginning of the strawberry, then you wouldn't have to do this. So just taking a number 4 and just making these little lines, kind of going like this, for the strawberry seeds. And again, we're going to wait till this dries, and we're going to go back in with the pen and ink. We could do the pen and ink on the leaves first, and then come back in and do them on the strawberries. So I'm going to go to the leaves. We already did the veins on them, but we can go right ahead over that if we want to with the ink. It's like double drawing. Go on the line too. On here. I'm playing around. I'm moving the actual picture around so I can get better control of putting in the lines where I want them to go. Don't be afraid to move your piece of paper. It doesn't have to stay in one place. Okay, just doing these little sketchy lines. Doing the little crown here. I'm really trying not to make a mess because it can happen. And you've seen some of my videos where it does. You see I'm just going on a little leaf part. And do the strawberry itself. And hopefully, well, see, a little splotchy. I knew I wasn't going to get away with it. But that's okay, I kind of like it. Right? If it's a little too much ink, you can just take a paper towel, really small, kind of soak that up. It has a kind of cool effect to it. Lift up some of the ink. Just like that. Can't all be perfect now. I strive. But I live in the real world. And those imperfections actually kind of come out cool. So by now that white part has kind of dried, you're basically just going to do a little V under it. See? And then it's going to highlight this little movement. And it just highlights it. That's all you do. Now, you can write a word strawberry under it. You can write summer. Get creative, you know. See that little splash? It's kind of cool, right? Makes it more interesting instead of boring. So, there we have our fruits of our labor, huh? Isn't it very, very nice? Don't you like my puns? There you go for Mini Monday Madness. Strawberries and blueberries. I can't eat these, but I can eat these. I'm allergic to these. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial just to get you out of your comfort zone, play around again with ink and wash. The fountain pen's a lot of fun, guys, but just be careful. You can make some splashes, but hey, that's the journey. That's the fun. Try different things. If you don't want to do that, you don't have that, just go stick with your Sharpie. You can pen that in first and then go back in and wash in the color and then splatter the paint. So there you go. If you have any questions in the comment section, and take care. Have a fantastic day.